You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Alex. Kevin's not going to be with us tonight, feeling a little under the weather, but I'm sure we'll see him back next week. Alex, how we doing tonight?
The countdown is on. Basketball's finally done and behind us. Congratulations to the UConn Huskies winning their second consecutive men's national title game. How about that women's national title game? That was something fun on Sunday. South Carolina also repeating, right? Okay, so I saw a conspiracy theory, and it was the Chiefs have repeated. The Gamecocks repeated, the Huskies have repeated. I think there was somebody else that repeated that was a major team. And so it was like, Knights and Rangers fans, what do you think? Texas Rangers fans, like, are you gonna repeat here? But I don't know that we see either of those teams repeat in their respective sports, but either way, great college basketball season. Brackets sucked as always, and we are now into what I consider to be the best month of sports, right? April, I think, is the best month when it comes to sports because you get a little bit of everything. You get what used to be baseball opening day, but still the first week of baseball. Hope springs eternal, right? When baseball season starts, the Rockies will still not be mathematically eliminated for at least another 2 weeks. And so, like, it's nice to have that. You've got playoff pushes for hockey. Oh, basketball. Basketball would be nice if the Nuggets could go back to back.
Yep.
But it is playoff pushes for both the NBA and the NHL. We've got the Masters teeing off this weekend. We just had basketball wrap up, college basketball wrap up. So I think we're in the greatest month of sports. I'm a little biased. My birthday's also in this month. So I think it's a pretty great month.
It's a month. I'll give you that. There's at least 30 days in it, and it would qualify as a month. So I'll give you that one. Baseball, you're never going to talk me into that one. Right. Like, for whatever reason, I cannot get behind that. Make the season 54 games long, and let's just be done with it.
No.
Yes.
It's really great how it was explained, right? I can't remember. I'm going to wrongfully attribute this quote. I think it was Tommy Lasorda. He said, in baseball, every team is going to win 62. They're going to lose 62. It's what you do with the other 64.
It was 54 because that's a third of the season. But
there you go. Yeah.
And yes, I'm referencing that quote myself when I say just shorten it to 54 games, because those are the only 54 games that matter in baseball.
That's true.
Every team's going to win 54. Every team's going to lose 54. Let's just play the 54 games that matter. And then we won't have to, put all this stuff in there about a shot clock with the pitching and, try and put timers on everything to speed up the game, the pace of play and everything else. And just, if you make it where it's 54 games that truly matter, then we're there, right? Like, similar thing. Don't get me started on the NBA playoff and play-in type of nonsense. You're going to play 82 games to let 2/3 of the league make it to the playoffs.
It's a little weird.
So, yeah. So, anyway, but so that's kind of my thoughts on it. But I will give you the fact that there is kind of a little bit of everything with it, right? Like,
and then you've got the NFL draft to kind of round out the month. So there's a little NFL sprinkled in there too, right?
And you have the spring football, right?
Spring football is awesome.
USFL, XFL type of stuff going.
Everybody is excited. WrestleMania is in April, right? That happened over the weekend. 2 nights. I heard there was some fun stuff that happened. I'm going to be honest. I've kind of fallen off the wrestling. We were big into it in college, right?
Yes.
We got together and watched all the pay-per-view. It was a nice bonding event for all of us.
Yes, it was.
But I've kind of fallen off that bandwagon there for a little bit. I only have so much bandwidth, and I think kind of my F1 fandom has now kind of replaced what my wrestling fandom was. Both similar in that I don't really particularly care for any one person in, oh my God, Nathan McKinnon is the most ridiculous hockey player on the face of the planet. Can I just say that right now? Sorry, I've got the game going here on my phone while we're recording. He just hit his hat trick in the second period, and 2 of those goals have been just absolute highlight reel goals. Look those up later. Sorry, he's just unbelievable. What was I saying? Yeah, my F1. I don't care about any particular team or anything. I root for chaos in F1. That was kind of how it was in wrestling too. I kind of rooted for chaos.
There you go. Speaking of the NFL and getting that sprinkled in, we're going to have the live draft here on the first round. So Thursday, April 25th, we're going to go live about 15 minutes before the televisions all kick off there to bring the live reactions, all of that. And we'll be live across all the various platforms. Make sure that you tune in. It'll be a lot of fun. And we'll get to kind of see how close we are with some of our mocking situations with our mock drafts here. And that's what we're going to rock and roll through tonight. We do have the mock draft 1.0. And for everybody out there that's watching that, maybe this is the first time you've seen the boys do a mock draft version. The 1.0 version is we have to go through and we basically just alternate picks between the 3 of us, and there's no draft day trades, nothing like that. It's pick them as the board lies, and kind of get a feel for it going that way. And we're gonna start rocking and rolling through that here in just a moment. But before we get to that, any kind of thoughts out there, any news, notes, anything of relevance that you want to hit up and talk about before we start diving into this?
I hadn't really seen any NFL notes of note per se. There hasn't really been too much to talk about that is of significance, especially fantasy significance over the last week. So I haven't, it's been kind of a quiet week, and I anticipate that we're going to start to see more draft smoke screens, right? Like we're going to start to see, you were talking about it earlier, right? There's some reports coming out about certain individuals that may or may not have an impact about where they go if they hear their name called on Thursday night of the NFL draft. So I think we're going to start to see a little bit more of that over the next couple of days and weeks leading into the draft. But yeah, nothing really of note in terms of NFL news.
Right. Yeah, this is, and quite frankly, this is what some folks out there call the lying season, the smoke screen season, the you name it kind of season. There's a whole lot of kind of misinformation going amongst the teams there, right? Like, and this is one of my favorite ways to kind of look at this lens and really kind of encapsulate this and really kind of blow this up as far as what we've seen. Like at this point last year, if you had listened to so many of the smoke screens out there and so many of the reports out there and everything else, you would have thought for sure there was zero chance that the Texans were drafting CJ Stroud number 2. Like the reports coming through there, all of that, where if you'd listened to us, we were saying that quite frankly, he should be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Based on what we'd seen out there. But we are very much in that time of year and that point in the off season where teams are really kind of jockeying for a position and really trying to not let other folks on to what their plans are for 3 days here at the end of April. So be very interesting to see how things continue kind of coming out and kind of working through here, but should be pretty good. Should be pretty interesting here. So
it always is. There's always going to be those draft night surprises. I mean, how many people last year saw 2 running backs going in the first, 12 picks, right? How many people saw that coming? I think we all probably had a pretty good idea that, oh crap. Now I can only think of Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah. Bijan. Thank you. We had a pretty good idea that Bijan was going to go high, right? Like we figured that was going to happen. The Gibbs pick was kind of out of nowhere. I remember I had to step off of our broadcast last year to take care of my dog real quick while that was going on. And when I got that notification, I was beside myself. I was shocked at what happened and the pick that Detroit had made. And so there's going to be those, right? There's always going to be a team that says, well, this is what we're targeting. This is what we're doing. And then something happens and they have to pivot and go a different way, or they never were going to go that direction in the first place. It's fun. It's the drama of it all, right? And it's a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah. And that's another great point there too, right? And kind of after the draft happened, all of these reports started going, oh, well, teams had Jahmyr Gibbs, going here. And if he didn't go at 12 to the Lions, he would have gone, a couple of picks after type of thing. And, again, right. Not many people had that one planned out there, that there would be 2 running backs taken in the first round. Right?
Yeah.
It's
in the top half of the first round too. Not oh, we'll take a flyer, like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the Chiefs, right? They took him with the last pick, and it's like, oh yeah, then we get the 5th-year option. It's not that big of a deal. No, we're talking these are dudes that's capital that you're talking about. Top 12 it should be a franchise, impact player.
Right. Not guys that, for a position that struggles to make it to the second contract, and much less get paid on the second contract. So, no, very interesting. But, well, any other kind of thoughts here before we start rocking and rolling into some draft mocking?
No, I think it bears repeating what this exercise is for us. You said it a little earlier, but it does bear repeating. This draft is done as it sits on April. We did this on Sunday, but April 7th, April 9th, as we record this is the draft order. We said no trades can happen. And so if you're picking in this way, and we alternated how we picked, right? So I had the number 1 overall pick, and then who did it go after that?
And then it went to myself, then Kevin, then back to you.
And then back to me, right? So we didn't snake, right? We just alternated picking, and none of us knew what the other 2 were thinking or where they were going to go. So it does have some, draft night feel. We had to put on our GM hat for each of the teams as we were getting ready to draft. But again, no deals can be made. This is what we think this team will do when they hear their name called, if there were no trades allowed on draft night.
Right. So, and it was funny too, because some of those picks that we were going through there, right? All of a sudden it was, oh, that's a curveball. Gotta change things up and go in a different strategy. And there were a few of those, and we'll make note of those as we go through. Through some of those. There
were also several instances where I tried to pick a guy who had been taken 15 picks earlier, and it was like, man, how is this guy still available? He wasn't. He was not still available.
Yes, that's also very true.
There were a couple of those instances.
I was going to let that one slide under the table there, but
that's okay. Call me out.
Full transparency. All right.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, Alex, that's going to put, let's go ahead and get that rocking and rolling. That's going to put you and the Bears on the clock at number 1.
So Chicago, they have a lot of needs, right? But with Justin Fields getting shipped out, if they don't go quarterback here, they can't not go quarterback. And even if Caleb Williams says, I'm not going to play for you guys, they at least have the piece to make a deal to get somebody, right? And that's what you need. So the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams here. I'm 50-50 on whether or not Caleb Williams actually plays for Chicago, and he might pull, what was that? Eli Manning, right? John Elway did this. It doesn't happen often, but it will happen where a guy says, I'm not going to go play for you. That's not going to happen. And so he will be the number 1 overall pick. I'm legitimately leaning 50-50. I cannot decide which side I want to be on of whether or not he actually takes a snap for the Chicago Bears. But he will be the number 1 overall pick. The Bears possess the number 1 overall pick. They will call Caleb Williams' name.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that at this point that I think that it probably does go. Probably does play for the Bears, just simply from the standpoint that they've gone out and they've addressed a lot of things in Chicago this offseason and kind of revamped some things here and there. And so I could see that being a different different kind of feel there and different type of thing. But I like the pick, and I do think you're right. I think that we see Caleb go number 1 overall. As far as number 2 overall, guy that's been just, the hype train starting to, has been pulling out the station for, and the Commanders on the clock. I think that that we see the Commanders go with a JJ McCarthy, and really kind of take what a lot of folks are deeming as a darling, trade up and go get him at number 4 type of guy. But I think that we see the Commanders pull the trigger and take JJ McCarthy right off the bat here.
So first off, as a Broncos fan, I love that pick for Washington because that means that the Broncos won't be moving up to 4, right? They can stay pat. They don't have to, hedge, right? And maybe sacrifice more future to go get this guy who, like, look, I don't have anything against him personally. I just don't want him to be my quarterback for my team. So I love that pick, which means that Denver or maybe even Minnesota stays put. And I think that's the play here. I think moving up to get one of these quarterbacks, I'm not sure is the reward is worth the risk, or certainly the investment that you're making to trade up to get that. I've got Kevin here, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the Patriots are now on the clock. They also need a quarterback with Williams and McCarthy gone. Kevin has gone with Drake May, who I think we all kind of agree is probably QB2 in this class anyways. So I think that, that was a hesitation. I think he's QB2 in this class. I think Kevin would probably agree with that. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he's pretty high on Drake May. I certainly know he likes him more than JJ.
Right.
But
I would say that I'd probably have Jaden Daniels just a slight edge over Drake May, as far as a prospect goes. But I mean, we're talking like 1A and 1A and a half type of thing, like 1A, 1B type of thing, or in this case, 2A and 2A and a half, instead of 2B type of thing. But I think that this is they're really close, but I kind of lean towards the Jaden Daniels a little bit more so.
Yeah. All right. So Drake May goes to the Patriots, which means I'm back on the clock with the Cardinals, who need some toys for Kyler. And what better toy to get than Marvin Harrison Jr., the wideout out of Ohio State. So he goes at number 4 to Arizona.
Yeah, and I could certainly see that one. This is one that I think everybody kind of anticipates. With the quarterback situation here, the Cardinals trading out of it yet again, right? They traded number 3 overall last year as well to acquire.
And what did that get them? The number 4 overall pick is what I got them this year. They If you're going to be trading out at number 3, you need to be picking down in the bottom third, not the upper third, year after year after year.
Right, but they've got 3 picks in the top 35 this year. So
right, which is huge. So I'm 75%. I think a team comes up if there's still a JJ McCarthy available here at 4, which there very well could be. I think a team comes up and gets him here.
Right. Same thing too. If Jaden Daniels, as far as this mock goes, if Jaden Daniels sitting there at 4, I think you've got teams falling all over themselves to trade away,
to move up. Yeah.
Yep. So, and I think the Cardinals are all for that to try and trade those away. So, but as it sits, right, like no tradesies, and I like that Marvin Harrison pick right there, right? Bring in some weapons for Kyler, let that rock and roll there, and I do really like that fit and that pick there. That leads us to the number 5 pick, the Los Angeles Chargers, and their head coach coming out with some commentary earlier, talking about if you see 4 quarterbacks go in the first 4 picks, that means that the number 5 pick overall is really like the number 1 pick type of thing. And I paraphrase that, but I could see that, right? And you and I were talking a little bit about this beforehand, because this is a pick that threw a kind of a curveball in this, because a lot of people have a wide receiver going here to the Chargers, right? And for various reasons, but if that's really how the Chargers are viewing this, is that if 4 quarterbacks go ahead of them, and this is really the number 1 pick, well, there's three positions you really go after with the number one pick. It'd be a quarterback. Chargers don't require that, and you're not spending a fifth overall here on any other quarterback. Left. The other thing, you then go for edge rushers. Well, they've got two of those guys that are very high priced on the roster already with Bosa and Khalil Mack. Not going that. So where's the other position you go? That's right, tackle. And that's where they're going here. Joe Alt, tackle, going to the Chargers here.
And so we were talking, as you mentioned, before we started here, and it's wide receiver seems to be the logical choice. We look as the roster sits right now on the Chargers roster. They have 3 wideouts. One of those was a rookie last year with Quentin Johnston. So realistically, you're going to carry 6, right? As you get into the season, you'll have at least 5, maybe 6. They have, what did I say? 5 tight ends and a fullback listed on the roster right now. So look at just based on roster construct here on April 9th, 5 tight ends and a tight end fullback, 3 wide receivers. I think they're going to try to run the football there in Los Angeles. I think that's probably what they're going to try to do. You don't bring in a bunch of tight ends, and sure, not all those guys are going to make the roster or be on the 53 man at least. But you don't have all those guys if you don't plan on instilling some sort of new philosophy that, we're going to run the football here. They brought in Gus Edwards, right? We're going to run the football. I think they probably grab another running back in this draft at some point. If they don't go receiver here, yeah, you can get cheaper receivers that I think this league is an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the wide receiver position, right? Like there's so many of them that are so good at what they do that you don't have to spend capital, essentially what they are looking at is number 1 overall capital, right? With this 5th pick that is a non-quarterback, you don't have to spend it here. So I see your reasoning here. And I like the pick. I hated the pick because I am next up with the Giants.
Actually, Kevin was next up.
Oh, Kevin was next up.
And I'll hit that one up. But
yeah, go ahead.
But here's one of the things, because I think that they can make this pick and they still get wide receiver. The Chargers can then go wide receiver second round with guys like Keon Coleman, likely there. Ladd McConkey.
Plenty of great wide receivers that'll be available. And I don't use that term lightly. I think there's still plenty. There will be plenty of great wide receivers available in rounds 2 and 3 that you won't have to have as much capital spent, and you're still going to get productive dudes.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. So, Kevin had the number 6 pick with the Giants. He is going wide receiver here, which this is one of those that if the Giants in real life are have the potential of having Jaden Daniels fall into their laps, that wouldn't surprise me if they pull the trigger here. But that Kevin went with Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of LSU. A lot of folks out there talking about how he could be, one of the great upside wide receivers out there and a tremendous prospect. There's also some other reports out there kind of surfacing through, Malik Neighbors, addressing some of those reports, over the last couple of days here as well. But that's where Kevin's going is Neighbors to the Giants.
Okay. So then now it is my turn with the Titans on the clock. I was going to go Joe Alt, right? The Titans need offensive line help, something fierce. They need a lot of help. But you have, you're going to want to try to protect whoever's trotting out there at quarterback there in Nashville. You're going to want to try to protect them. So I think that they probably go tackle, and there's tackles that are available, but I think at this point, Joe Alt's off the board. So you kind of go to like best player available. And I don't know. I struggled with this pick. I'm going to be honest with you. I went with Dallas Turner, the linebacker out of Alabama. Does it make a ton of sense? Yes, he is a very impactful linebacker. They do have a need at linebacker. I wouldn't say it's high on their hierarchy of needs. But
as an edge rusher, it makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. And he can do that. The other thing I'd say is like, what gives me pause about this pick is Brian Callahan is now the head coach there in Tennessee. We have to think of there's a new mindset right there in Tennessee in terms of the head coach. So do I think they go offense here? Probably likely, but I think the smart play here is to go Dallas Turner out of Alabama.
Yeah, I could see that. To be honest, I think that they end up going tackle here, right? Like Joe Alt, really good. Best prospect.
Alt is such a high tier, right?
Right,
and then it kind of falls off from there. So I think you have to.
I mean, maybe Troy Fontenot, really good. Talise
Fuaga.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, I know I'm going to butcher that name, but both of those guys, tremendous. JC Latham, really good. Like it would not surprise me to see any of those guys' names called here if Joe Alt is not available.
I agree with you. Like I said, really struggled with this pick. But it's possible. I would agree with you, man. Offensive minded head coach, the need to protect your quarterback there. I think there's so many reasons why they go offense there.
Right. And I
wouldn't be surprised.
And if this was a little while ago, like it wouldn't have surprised me to see them taking like a Roma Duze on this one as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Just because of the fact that right, but they've got DeAndre Hopkins, they've got Calvin Ridley, both of those guys on the roster. I don't see you spending a top 10 pick to have a guy come in and sit behind those two wide receivers. So
yeah,
I like the pick. I can certainly see it. I had Dallas Turner because I had the Falcons at 8. I had Dallas Turner lined up, ready to go, typed in all of that, and I'm like, yep, this is an easy done deal because I think this is the pick where we see Dallas Turner go right here to the Falcons. Makes a lot of sense there. But he went to pick right before, so kind of sat there, looked at what they what they needed, what they're requiring out of this one. Top two needs really are an edge rusher, cornerback. So guys like Jared Verse on the board, certainly worth a look at here. Two cornerbacks on the board that really kind of stand out. Mitchell out of Toledo, Terry and Arnold out of Alabama. Both of those guys very much were in play on this one, but the pick that the Falcons went with was Jared Verse in this case. So really kind of trying to solidify some edge rushing and doing that for a defensive-minded head coach in Raheem Morris.
Yeah, and still plenty of holes to fill there in Atlanta. Chicago back on the clock again. Not quite the embarrassment of riches that Miami had a couple years back where they were picking twice in the top 5. Twice in the top 10, still not bad. You have to nail them though, right? Miami did a good job of nailing their picks when they did that. And so they've already gone Caleb Williams. Again, I don't know if Caleb Williams actually plays for them, but they will have a new quarterback there. And so you want that quarterback to have a weapon. And Kevin here has gone with Rome Odunze out of Washington, who had just, that special run there in the college football playoff and was just unbelievable for the Huskies. And I think is rather deserving of a top 10 pick there at the wideout position. I think he is.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that one. I could also see them going offensive line here as well.
Yeah, line going again. You can never have enough O linemen, D linemen, right? You can never have enough of those. So either of those are two good options. But I like the thinking here that you give the new quarterback somebody, and the best part is, right, you've got these guys in theory for 5 years together, right? So you can work on building that chemistry year 1, right? You have a starting point in year 2, and then by year 3, you are reaping the benefits of year 1 and year 2 together, right? So that's a good line of thinking. We've seen this script work before. We've seen it work. Maybe it doesn't always take 3 years, but sometimes it works. Cincinnati comes to mind with that, right?
Right.
So I am back on the clock now with the New York Jets, who need a tight end. They need safety help. They need wide receiver. They need linebacker. They need cornerback. So naturally, what I have done is taken an O lineman. Talise Fuaga, because look, you've got Aaron Rodgers for maybe one more year. You had him for all of 4 seconds last year. So do everything you can to protect that man, right? All the chips are in on Aaron Rodgers. So you do everything you can to protect him. And so you go line here to try and hopefully make a difference and let him play more than, what was it? Two plays, 1 play. How many plays was it? I can't even remember.
Not many.
I know it took him longer to run out onto the field with the American flag than it did for him to take a snap and then take a second snap.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I like it. I like that pick there. That puts the Vikings on the clock here, and the Vikings,
dream scenario for them, right?
Right.
Dream scenario for the Vikings.
Right. So Jaden Daniels, who a lot of folks have as the number 2 quarterback in this draft class, falls to number 11 for the Vikings, and they're going to go that route, right? Kind of reminds me almost a little bit of the a couple of years ago when we saw Justin Fields. A lot of folks had him as the number 2 overall quarterback in that draft class, and fell, and then the Bears trade up to about pick 11 to select him. So kind of interesting that we see that one come to play here. But Jaden Daniels is the Vikings pick, and they are super happy they got their quarterback.
Yeah, dream scenario for Minnesota. Don't have to give up anything. Still get the guy that you probably will end up getting, right? That's it's probably what they're going to end up getting, because I don't know if they can get to 4. He may still be there, but this would be just the dream scenario for them.
Right. Alrighty, and that puts Kevin and so Kevin has the Broncos, and they've got some quarterback need, some cornerback need, defensive tackle, edge, really all the defensive line, and some offensive line at the tackle position as well. But they go none of the above, and they look at it and go, "We're going to take Brock Bowers."
I love this pick.
I do too.
Man, I would love this so much if they did this. It's not going to happen. The Broncos won't do what I think they will do. It's never going to happen that they take Brock Bowers here. I don't even know that they're staying here to take Brock Bowers. Man, I love this pick.
Right. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one. I would love to see Brock Bowers in the Sean Payton system and see how that really looks and works. And from a fantasy perspective, like, is there a better landing spot that a player in this draft could have other than, in that scenario, right? Like, brings back the Jimmy Graham Saints type of days there. And that's really what I think we could see come to fruition there.
And look, you're going to have a quarterback that hasn't played a ton of football outside of college, right? With Jarrett Stidham, right? If you're not going quarterback here, Jarrett Stidham's your guy, presumably. So go get him a security blanket. And what better security blanket than a guy who is just an absolute vacuum as a tight end, right? And knows how to win. They're out of the University of Georgia. Okay, the Raiders are on the clock at 13, needing to address their own quarterback situation. So I've gone ahead and let them address their quarterback situation. This might be a bit of a reach here, but I feel comfortable in taking this one. And the Raiders go with Michael Penix out of Washington.
Interesting. So what led to the Michael Penix pick over the Bo Nix pick? A lot of folks have Bo Nix going kind of in this draft capital range.
I think Michael Penix is a better quarterback than Bo Nix.
I don't disagree.
So that's why. It's because I think that Michael Penix is a better quarterback. I could see them going Bo Nix here. not 100% sold that they go quarterback. This would be crazy because right now, as we have it, we have 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks taken in the first 13 picks, which could very well end up happening. Probably not in this order as this lies. But I just think that Penix is a better quarterback. So I'll take Penix here. Again, give me somebody who knows how to win. And I think that we learned a lot of lessons from LSU, right? We learned a lot of lessons from that 2019 LSU team. And yes, we were robbed of small school guys impressing at pro days and the combine. And it just ended up being an SEC fest in the draft because all we had was tape, right? We didn't have any of these workouts or anything else. But winners win. And those are guys you want on your team.
Right. So I like it. That's going to put the Saints on the clock, and I've got to pick for the Saints. And they've got some holes kind of across the board there, right? They offensive tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, defensive tackle, linebacker, lots of holes here, lots of great talent out there. And I think where they're going to go with this one is to try to address some offensive line. JC Latham is on the board, and that is where they're going with this pick.
That puts the Colts on the clock at 15. This is Kevin's pick. Corner seems to be their biggest area of need. So he has gone with Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo, which I think is not bad pick. He's a big guy, 6 foot, 196. Can match up pretty well with some of these bigger wide receivers. Shoot, he's bigger than some of the wide receivers coming out of college these days. So, yes. NFL frame, right? And that's what you want. So this is a good pick. It's an interesting pick because of, man, what do you do? You've got an Anthony Richardson problem there in Indianapolis. I say problem, but like you got to figure out how you can utilize him. We were kind of robbed of that last year because of the injury. And so do you try and help him? But I think, do your best to keep Anthony Richardson on the field by getting the other team off of it and get you a good corner.
Right. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because they've got some of this, they've got pieces around Anthony Richards, right? Like you've got Jonathan Taylor, you've got Michael Pittman Jr., you've got a couple of other wide receiver pieces out there as well. So I like that pick. Really try and solidify some of the defensive side of things there.
Yeah. All right. That puts me on the clock with the Seattle Seahawks. And they don't have to go far for this pick. They're going to go just down the road and call Troy Fautanu's name out of the University of Washington, the O-lineman. Again, I maintain that you can never have enough O-linemen or D-linemen. So there are areas of need for the Seahawks. They need a D tackle. They need linebacker. Interior O-line happens to be one of them that they need. And I think Fautanu is right up there with the best of the interior O-linemen.
Yeah, I like that pick. I could see them going with like a Byron Murphy, right, and along the defensive line and side of things there, like that seems like a good fit. But I really like that Fantanow pick right there at 16, which moves us to number 17, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've got some needed edge. Cornerback, defensive tackle, offensive tackle, interior line. They're going to go with a guy that I think will be one of the has the ability to develop into one of the better cornerbacks that we may see in the league here in the couple of years. And that's Terrion Arnold, the cornerback out of Alabama. Certainly has the ability to come in and be a little bit of a shutdown right away. And that puts Kevin on the clock with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I've got this one here. So, Kevin, looking at the Bengals, thinking that they need offensive line help, defensive line help, cornerback, wide receiver, tight end. And they're going to go with Tyler Guyton, the tackle out of Oklahoma. And I think this pick makes a ton of sense for them and really helps solidify some of that line.
Again, you got to protect your investment, right? Joe Burrow is your future there. He has shown a propensity to be a little bit health averse, right? And it's just like, it's not major things, right? I mean, it has been some major things, but like over the course of a season, he takes enough of a beating that you need to make sure that you limit those hits on him, right? And so protect your investment at all costs. And that's a good pick there. To make sure. I'm gonna stay on the O-lineman train. It looks like we've got a bit of an O-lineman train happening here. The Rams on the clock here, and I went 4 different ways. I think this was the first one where I picked somebody and Derek had to be like, yeah, no, he's gone already. Which I would love to see how that works if it actually happened in real life. Could you imagine somebody turning in their card and they're like, no, did you guys not pay attention? 10 picks ago, this guy went. Right. The LA Rams on the clock at 19. They need D tackle, really all the D-line spots, ton of help on defense, corner as well. Tackle is a good idea, and kicker, we're not going to take a kicker in the first round. It's just like a steadfast rule. You should probably use that rule in your fantasy drafting as well. Never take a kicker in the first round. So I've gone with Amarius Mims, the tackle out of Georgia, two-time national championship winner. Big dude too. My goodness, is he big? What's he listed?
He's a mountain of a man.
Yes. Yeah, tough to move. So he's a tackle. You're going to want to protect an aging Matthew Stafford as best you can. So I've gone with Amarius Mims out of Georgia for the Rams at 19.
Awesome. That's going to put the Steelers back on the clock here with the 20th pick. And right there, looking at it, they've got some tackle help or some offensive line, both tackles and interior line help needed, wide receiver help needed, cornerback, defensive tackle. And they're going to try and solidify the cornerback and really try and solidify some of their passing defense here. They're going to go cornerback. The Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. And this one here makes some sense, especially if you compare him off with Joey Porter Jr., who they drafted in the second round last year. And you bring in two young cornerbacks into a division that has kind of all the rest of the quarterbacks seem to be very much set in this one. And now you're playing some defense against guys like Joe Burrow, Watson, and Lamar Jackson there. To really try and slow things down there a little bit. So I like it. That's where they're going here. Nate Wiggins.
I think it's a safe bet that they go defense here, just because you do need to counteract what's going on in the rest of those teams. And like you said, those teams in that division seem pretty well set with what Pittsburgh's the only one that doesn't seem pretty well set with what they're doing at quarterback for the next 5 years, right? At least the next 5 years. So good bet that they go defense here to try and slow down some of those other options. That puts Kevin on the clock at 21 with the Miami Dolphins needing O-line help, D tackle help, and offensive tackle help. And so he has gone for the O-lineman here of Graham Barton out of Duke.
Right,
that I believe
plays some interior and center. Yeah,
center and interior. If I'm not mistaken, and you'll have to forgive me here, I'm pretty sure he's one of the guys that can move up and down the line. Has played all 5 spots throughout his collegiate career, and that's pretty valuable to these NFL teams, especially if they're going to take you in the first round. To have you be able to kind of plug and play wherever they need you, really, really valuable. And it's kind of the future of O-lineman play, is to be able to fill in at all these spots.
I like it.
All right, let's move on to 22. Philadelphia Eagles on the clock here, needing cornerback help, needing O-line help, needing wide receiver help and safety help. I went with their most pressing need of corner. And I went ahead and took Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama.
I like that one. Very much feels like an Eagles type of pick right there.
The only thing that makes it feel not like an Eagles pick is that it's not a Georgia player. It is an Alabama player. Right.
So that's gonna lead us to the. Although it wouldn't surprise me if they also went like if Graham Barton or Jackson Powers Johnson was still available.
If Amarius Mims is still there,
yes.
Like book it, right? If there's a Georgia player that's worth drafting at 22 still there, hell, if there's a Georgia player that's worth drafting at 32 that's still there, you bet your backside that the Eagles are probably going to take that Georgia player. It's just the way of the world.
Yeah, yes, very much so. All right, that puts the Vikings back on the clock with 23. They got their guy in Jaden Daniels at sliding all the way to number 11, which then leads us into the they're still needing some line help, some edge help, some wide receivers, some defensive tackle. They're going to go on the defensive side of the ball here with the second pick and go with the defensive tackle Byron Murphy. I guess that moves us on to Kevin's pick here at 24 with the Cowboys. Kevin going on the offensive line side of things, going with the interior lineman Jackson Powers Johnson for the Cowboys, which again, that seems very much like a Cowboys pick there as well, going offensive line here in round 1.
All right, that puts it does feel very Cowboys-ish, right? You think they're going to make the splashy move, and then they make the responsible one. And when you think they're going to make the responsible one, they make the splashy one. So that puts Green Bay on the clock at 25. That'd be kind of funny to see how this works. You know, the Cowboys and the Packers, two pretty historic teams if they play off each other a little bit. But the Packers here need D tackle help, linebacker help, offensive line help. Yeah, they need D tackle help, but I've gone with more of a defensive end player here, still available out of Penn State, and I've gone Chop Robinson, who's a great name for a D lineman, right? Like that's a perfect name. Chop, it's his nickname, but yeah, Chop Robinson out of Penn State goes to the Packers at 25.
I like that one. I really thought that he would be around for this next pick when looking at that and really potentially trying to rock and roll that one there. But no, I do like that one. But I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to roll on the defensive side of the ball here. Edge is a big need for them, and they're going to go with the Latau out of UCLA to help solidify some edge rushing here as well.
All right, that puts Kevin on the clock with the Cardinals making their second selection of this first round. At 27, he has gone with Darius Robinson, D tackle out of Missouri.
Yeah,
which addresses some needs there, right? Earlier, the Cardinals went offense. Now they go defense in our draft. So makes sense.
It absolutely does. I think that puts you back on the clock, my friend.
It does, with the Bills needing all of a sudden needing wide receiver help, right? As of last week when they dealt Stephon Diggs to Houston. Maybe that was something that happened that we didn't talk about, right? I don't know if we talked about that last week. I think it happened after we recorded.
I mean, an eclipse happens. Stephon Diggs gets traded. It's pretty standard stuff.
Standard stuff, right? So I forgot about the eclipse. It was like my whole life yesterday too. So I've gone Brian Thomas Jr. He is a wideout out of LSU, still available here. I was kind of going back and forth, right? So I think if Buffalo goes wideout here, I think there is 3, maybe 4 guys that you could take here, and I wouldn't be surprised one way or another, right? So Brian Thomas out of LSU, the 2 guys out of Texas, right? Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's a 4th one that's kind of lumped in there, and I can't remember right off the top of my head. But I do think the Bills go wideout here, and I think it's important that they get a wideout with a 5th-year option. So I do think that it is wideout. I of all of the picks that I've made, aside from Caleb Williams going number 1, I'm fairly confident about the position that the Bills go here with wideout. I don't know that it's going to be Brian Thomas Jr. It could be, whatever their preference is, but I think they go wideout here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, at this point they're staring down going, we need to go get a guy, right? Like, yeah, they have got not much in. Yeah.
We need a dude.
Matt Collins is available at wide receiver in Buffalo.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who, Khalil Shakur. Yeah, I mean, there's not much in the way of Bills wide receivers at this point. So,
Right.
all
And I
righty,
want to before we move on from that, because I do want to see who um my other whiteout that I had in mind was.
probably Xavier Leggett.
Yes. You could make a case for a Lad McConkey here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the other guy that I had kind of penciled in. I had 4 names written down in this one as you guys were making your picks ahead of me. And so Thomas was kind of the one that I kind of settled on. But yeah, Lad McConkey was for sure in there. And then the 2 boys out of Texas and Brian Thomas Jr.
Right. So I like it. That leads it to the Detroit Lions on the clock here, and Detroit, certainly seeming to be kind of the team on the up and up here, and really kind of surprising a lot of people's expectations here this last season. But that looking at it, they still need some help on the defensive side of the ball, right? The defense was much more improved, but still some help is needed on that side of the ball with, looking at the edge, looking at some pass rushing options, some safety. Really, that secondary needs some help. Wide receiver, a little bit of help there, and a little bit of help around the offensive line. But the Lions, I feel like they're going to focus in on the cornerback here. And Cooper DeJean out of Iowa still available, and that is where they're going, especially after they released Cam Sutton earlier this offseason.
Cool. I am.
And that,
if you will continue,
that takes me to Kevin's pick here with the Baltimore Ravens, and Baltimore going to very much do what Baltimore does, right? Like they focus on line, they focus on defense side of things, typically with a lot of these first round picks, and so they're going to go with Ola Fashanu at the offensive line position here, and then that's going to put you back on the clock with number 31 here and the Niners.
Yeah, so the Niners. Look, I tried to take Cooper DeJean here. But you took him 2 picks before me. They need cornerback help. Look, there's not a lot of holes in the Niners team, right? They don't have a bunch of glaring holes, and that's what happens when you go to the Super Bowl and you're, consistently making deep playoff runs here of late. So corner is probably their biggest area of need. I didn't see a corner after Cooper DeJean. I didn't see a corner that I liked here. So I went with Johnny Newton, a D tackle, to try and bolster up the middle of that D line.
Yeah, I could see that one there. And I kind of like that pick as well. That's going to move us on to Kansas City. Kansas City back-to-back Super Bowl champions. They've got some requirements at wide receiver, tackle, cornerback, running back, interior offensive line. So the line certainly a big issue here. There's certainly some options, if they're looking to go that route, but it's typically going to be more on the interior line side of things. They could go cornerback here, but outside of they maybe could look at like an Enos Rakestraw Jr., Kamari Lassiter, potentially for the cornerback side of things, which could certainly see making some sense. But I think that they're going to go wide receiver with this one. Very deep wide receiver class here. And Donnie Mitchell is a guy that I think that the Chiefs would gladly see on the roster, and I think would have a very good rookie campaign there. So that's where I think the Chiefs are going. And that's going to wrap up the draft here for the mock 1.0. Anything kind of stand out to you as far as the various guys taken, any of the different kind of options out there? Anybody that shocked you that names wasn't called?
No. I'm trying to quickly calculate there you go. You're helping me out here. Our breakdown of position. And I'm going to look at this quickly here. Obviously, we said we had 5 quarterbacks go in the first, 13 picks, and then that was it. The quarterback valve shut off. A lot of O-line, right, which is to be expected. Which kind of started there with Joe Alt early. Took a couple picks off, and then picked up in earnest in the middle part of the round, which makes sense, right? Usually, middle part of the round, you're a team that needs 1 or 2 things, right? Not a lot of things, but 1 or 2 things, and typically those are 1 or 2 things on the line, offensive or defensive side. You're not really. Usually, you're pretty well set with your playmakers, right? You're set at quarterback if you're picking there, kind of in the middle. Generally, you're okay at quarterback. So that's kind of the breakdown there. Is I'm also a little bit surprised, and maybe this speaks to the wide receiver class, right? We said wasn't very good when we did our breakdowns. It's not a world beater wide receiver class, right? So I think
you're speaking for yourself there, my friend.
What position did we say was not? I
Running
guess
back.
running back. Yeah,
running back was. This is a pretty good wide receiver
time.
class. Yeah.
This is okay. All right. You're right. I'm misremembering. We have no running backs going in the first round, which is not all that surprising, given that we only really thought that there would be one last year, and we got shocked with the second one, and it was a shock. As far as games go, we didn't have Tyler Nubbin go out of Minnesota. He's a safety, projected a top 32 pick, or depending on where you look, a top 32 pick. But we pretty much nailed, I think he's probably our biggest snub. Peyton Wilson, a linebacker out of NC State, maybe.
A lot of people have Bo Nix as a top 15 guy.
Bo Nix could sneak his way in there. I think somebody, if they wanted to trade in late with Kansas City, it's the thing to do, right? Because you want a guy with a 5th-year option, especially a quarterback. You want a guy with a 5th-year option.
Right.
So I think if Bo Nix does go, I think it's a team trading in at the end, or it could be Las Vegas taking him there at 13 instead of Michael Penix.
Yeah, I think Penix is really the guy that somebody would trade up to sneak in there. I think that we're going to see Nix probably go in the top 15. And I think we'll see Penix be the guy that somebody trades up for to try and scoop up that 5th year. But
yeah,
I've been very vocal on this one that we're going to either see 4 quarterbacks or 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round. I don't think we'll see 5.
Which, yeah, that's very possible. Just looking at some other draft rankings and players. I think we've pretty much hit the hits, right, as it were, in terms of overall rankings. I think we've pretty much knocked out. I think there were only a few instances of just take the best dude available. For sure, 7. I mean, I'm not entirely convinced that that's a Dallas Turner that goes there at 7 to Tennessee if Alt's off the board.
Right. Yeah, I think they look at offensive line more so, but
yeah, I wouldn't be shocked there. Again, I was thrown for a loop there, and I had all the time in the world to make this pick. Nobody else was going to pick until I made this pick. Yeah, it wasn't like I was on a clock. But I got thrown for a loop on that one. So I think that was a best player available. I think the Bowers pick at 12 is a best player available. I think that's the right pick there at 12. And I would love that. I think we've done well here. I think for 1.0 with the rules that we had in place for this exercise, is there anybody that you are surprised we didn't see their name go?
Not really, right? The biggest thing that shocked me was that kind of the slide that started happening for Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix not being selected there, right, on a what inevitably seems like the quarterbacks just going quick, fast, and in a hurry. So, but outside of kind of how some of the quarterbacks fell and how some of that kind of looked and worked, wasn't anything that really kind of stood out there. It seemed like everybody that I would have anticipated going in the first round went in the first round, right? The only ones that maybe you could make a case for would be like a Lad McConkey, potentially kind of sneaking up in there, Xavier Leggett sneaking up in there, or an Enos Rakestraw sneaking up in there. I could see those guys kind of sneaking up into that back 4, 5, 6 picks type of thing in the first round. But outside of that, no, not really anybody that really kind of stood out as oh my gosh, can you believe this guy? We'd let this guy fall all the way through.
Again, I think that Buffalo pick at 28, if they stay there, which like that's another candidate for somebody to kind of move in, because you can get, like I said, there's 5 guys there that they could take, right? As the board sat with us, there's 5 guys there that I think you would be just fine taking, right? Whichever it's your preference at that point when it comes to white out there. Again, I think we agree that it's going to be a whiteout taken by Buffalo. But that's a candidate of a team that can trade back and maybe get a couple whiteouts, right? A couple guys that'll be available. You said the depth of this class, you like it. It's a strong class. You can get a couple guys. Maybe you get them for a little cheaper than first round, pay them a little less on their first contract. So I think that Buffalo is a candidate to trade out there. I wouldn't be surprised if any one of those teams picking after Buffalo is a candidate to trade out if a team wants to come up and get back into the first round, right? If somebody else wants to get back in, I think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen at 28 and beyond.
But even the Cardinals, right? Like the Cardinals very much kind of that rebuild mode, and there's nothing to say that they stay
that they hang on there. Yeah.
They've
already made a pick, right? Presumably they will have a pick somewhere in the top half, right?
Right.
And an asset to go along with that.
Mm-hmm.
Another asset, be it another pick or a player, what have you.
Right. And they've got the 3rd pick in the 2nd round too. So would not surprise me if they move off the 4th pick, drop down a couple of picks there. And even if they move off on the 27th to acquire another first next year type of thing, and or acquire, multiple seconds to really kind of rebuild that roster. Like, that would not surprise me to see them kind of maneuver some pickings here.
Yeah, I think that's a team that's going to be active, right? Phone's going to be ringing off the hook there in Phoenix on draft night. I think they're going to be the most active team. They will be, because they've got the most leeway of what they can do. Teams are going to be calling, inquiring about number 4. Teams are going to be calling, inquiring about 27. So yeah, I'll amend my original statement there and say 27 on. That's a place where teams, if they're going to trade back into the first, that's where it's going to happen.
Right. So very good. Very good. Any other thoughts here? But any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
No, I think
wrapping it up.
We'll do this again next week. We'll have mock 2.0. That one will include some trades. We'll try to keep everything on the up and up. That's going to take a lot of paying attention on our part on what's going on there. But that'll be fun. And this one I think will be a little bit more indicative as to what might actually happen on draft night. I don't believe that the order that the draft sits on April 9th is how it's going to sit later this month. It's just not possible. I think for sure Arizona's moving at some point. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's other teams that decide to move off to there are too many teams that need quarterback that don't want to miss out on their guy to not see movement there in the top half of the draft.
Right. But the other thing too, right? Like it would not surprise me if the Patriots aren't sitting there at 3.
You think they move off of it there?
I could see that. Like how much of a Patriots thing would that be?
Well,
like,
but there would be a Patriots thing if Bill was still there.
Right. But
Bill's no longer there.
True. But it's that culture is kind of ingrained in there. I do believe.
That's
right?
fair.
Like,
that's very fair. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But
So
I think they brought right. So I think that the Patriots there at 3, I think they're pretty well stuck. I think they're pat there. I think they're good there.
Yeah, they might be. I could also see them moving off of that and really being, like, oh my gosh type of thing. Like I could
that would
see
be
something
something.
like that.
That would be something.
Yeah, I'm trying to look through and see what else. Like, wouldn't surprise me to see the Bears move off of number 9, right? Like, see somebody else kind of.
I wonder if they find a dance partner at 9, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they can find a dance partner at 9, I agree with you. The teams that need to get to 9, there's maybe the Raiders, right? The Raiders are probably going to want to pick if Minnesota and Denver don't move. The Raiders are probably going to want their pick ahead of them, right? So like that's a team that I see. And maybe if Denver can't work out something with Arizona and Minnesota's still sitting there. So is it enough, right? Is it enough to move up to 9 if you're 11, 12, 13, right? If you can't get a deal for 4, 9 is the next logical place. So is the asking price too high for 11, 12, 13 to move up 2 spots? Some would say it is because you're picking in front of a team that's likely going to take the guy you want, or at least take the position you're after. So that's an interesting one.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing that'll be interesting there too, right? Like if we do see 4 quarterbacks taken in the first 4 picks, like inevitably you're going to see.
Oh, teams are going to panic.
Yeah.
Teams are going to panic.
Yes. And at which point it is really going to, be very interesting from the standpoint how many of these quarterbacks we see don't even, at this point that are taking top 10 draft capital that don't even make it to the second contract with the team that drafted them, right?
Which is not all that uncommon.
Right. I was reading something the other day that Eric Fisher was the only number 1 overall draft pick in the last, I think it was 10 or 15 years that made it to a Super Bowl with the team that drafted him number 1.
Wild. Look, there's a reason that you're drafting number 1, right?
Correct.
There's a reason. He was taken in the 2013 draft. He is also now a free agent. So he got 1 contract and probably a couple more. I don't know his entire contract history, but for sure his first one, 5 years.
Who are you talking about?
Fisher.
Yeah, he was with the Chiefs when they won their first Super Bowl to it, and I believe he's at the tail end of his career anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But and I believe he ended up like tearing an Achilles.
His last game he played was in 21, so he's likely retired.
Right.
Maybe hasn't filed the paperwork yet.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean at that point, like, but
he played
you
for
want to
Indianapolis actually in 21. That's what it was.
Right. But you want to talk about teams in this number 1 overall picking and all of that. It's the last guy to have made it to the Super Bowl with the team that drafted him number 1 overall.
Oh, wild.
Absolutely crazy. So, alrighty. Well, any additional final thoughts out there before we call it a night?
No, we're plugging away here. We'll get to draft 2.0 next week, and again, that'll be a little bit more. And then we have a mock 3.0, which is where we get to wear GM hats for all 32 NFL teams. Well, All 32. Not everybody's picking in this first round.
Correct. For all 32 picks, we'll each make our own calls.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and that one will be very interesting to see there too, right? Like some of these, the first two, it's, we're kind of, we got to kind of go off of what somebody else did there, but then, with that last one, it's you got to really.
It's a free for all.
Yes, exactly. So, it'll be fun. It'll be good. Can't wait till next week when we get to do mock 2.0 with trades. Everything else, that's going to be a blast, and we'll be back same time Tuesday 11 p.m. Eastern out there. Make sure that you're hitting us up on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF, and there's little bite-sized player profiles for the for a lot of these players coming up in the draft out there on the socials. So make sure you're heading over there, click that like button, click that subscribe button, all that good stuff. Head over to the YouTube, click that like and subscribe there. But that's going to do it for us. He's Alex. I'm Derek. Kevin will be back next week. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.